Welcome tonight, everyone. Bear with me as I try to navigate here. Tonight, we're going to be having some fun painting a hollyhock. And you can see all my cameras. I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm here. So hopefully you are here with me. And if you're tuning in tonight, let me know where you're tuning in from. Tonight we're going to be painting a hollyhock, as you saw there a moment ago. And we're going to be having a little fun with watercolor. So if you're new here and you're unfamiliar with me, my name is Paige. I'm a painter and an illustrator. And once a month, I teach this class on YouTube live. We paint live here, as well as I have a private class that you can check out if you're interested at my website. You can check that out right there, and you can paint along with me. We paint privately through StreamYard. It's much like Zoom, and I have a portal where you can get all of the lessons and all the materials for that, because I create workbooks for each of these. So tonight's class is we're painting a flower. This is more of a structured painting than some that we've done, but very similar if you've been a student for a while, similar to what we've done in the past. We will be painting a hollyhock. I will throw that image up on the screen here in a minute, and you can take a screenshot of it if you want to, so you can use it for future reference. I used Unsplash, so you can also probably find this on Unsplash as well. Tonight I'm doing something a little bit different too. I have put out the colors that I'm going to use and their names and the brands that I'm using. So if you find that helpful, let me know. So we'll add this to the stage. You can take a screenshot of this if you want to use it for tonight's class. You may want to do that and then come back to this lesson. Usually lessons live up here on YouTube for about a week. Sometimes a little bit longer, depending on where I'm at in the world. But if you want to have access to the backlog of over 20 classes, you can go to my website, paigeweber.net, and check out my classes there and sign up for my private classes. They're pretty affordable, and we have a great small group of folks who like to paint together. All right. If you are tuning in tonight, let me know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments below. I'd love to know where you're at. And I'm going to switch my camera really quick, and we can take a look at what we're doing here. Okay, so this is also something that you may want to take a screenshot of. As you can see, we're doing a hollyhock, and I have it sketched out here. So you may want to save this video and refer back to it here this week. Some optional colors that I'm using tonight are shell pink. You don't actually have to use this color. I kind of used it in my demo. I can pull up here. In our little demo painting here, I did use, did use a little of the shell pink, but you can also use opera pink. The shell pink is by Holbein. The opera pink is a Daniel Smith color. I really love opera, but these are the main colors that we'll be using. And I'm going to be using a little bit of yellow lake for that background. I have a sap green and a bright green lake, but you can mix your own green by using a yellow and an ultramarine blue. So don't feel like you have to use exact colors. These are just what I'm using tonight, and we have an option down here, so just keep that in mind. I am using quinacridone magenta for this hollyhock. It's a really nice, vibrant, deep magenta color. And you can either use mineral violet for our shadows that live in here, or you can mix your own purple mixture from ultramarine blue, and magenta. So you can see they're pretty close in color. What's great about this mixture is you get all that granulation from that ultramarine blue, and that's really nice if you appreciate that effect. All right. If you have any questions about the colors, please throw them up in chat now while we're just taking a look at them. Hi, Jan. It's nice to have you here. I'm so glad that you were able to tune in tonight. I think this will be a fun class. I would also like to say that if you don't have a picture of a hollyhock, but you have a really fantastic picture of an iris or a daisy or some other kind of flower that really resonates with you, you can do this assignment with that kind of flower too. It's really up to what you prefer and what you like. All right, so I'm going to get set up here with my palettes. And if I have time tonight, we'll talk about these little Daniel Smith sticks. They're kind of interesting, and I thought my students might kind of appreciate that. So hopefully I don't forget. Hopefully we can get to that later tonight when we have questions at the end of class. You're always welcome to ask questions during class, however. Okay, so I have a couple of jars of water here, clean water, and I find that having a little pipette like this is kind of handy to wet our paints. So you may want to put that on your list of things to use. And what I'm going to need to do first is mix up some of my colors so I'm ready, and then we will get going. So this gives you a little bit of time for those who are painting along with me tonight to mix your colors as well. Now, you're probably going to want a brush. Let's see here. I didn't pull all my brushes out here, but you're probably going to want a nice brush that's going to mop water down nicely. And this is a small silver black velvet jumbo round. I actually like this brush for bigger backgrounds, things like that. Like this is a good size background for this brush because it holds a lot of water in it. So, and you can use any kind of brush that's going to hold a good amount of water. This one would, of course, this one would too. This is a little big for this, but keep that in mind. Some other brushes that I'm going to be using tonight are, I'm missing a brush somewhere here, but I'm either going to use this flat brush to fill in this area or something of that size. I also really like these round brushes for details that are a little bit smaller. Looks like some of my brushes have migrated from my desk here, so we'll just kind of make do. Any kind of round brush is great for these small areas. Okay. You know how it goes. It's like a busy week. And Jan, since you're here with me tonight, I'm planning on doing some plein air painting tomorrow. So if you're in town and you want to go, I'm going to leave in the morning. So text me and we'll go. Or you can meet me there. Okay. I'm just going to take this out. All right, so let's get some paints mixed up. What's great about these little pipettes too is you can add a little bit of water to your tray if you need to, so you're not dipping your brush repeatedly. I think that is good. Okay, let's get some pigment going. So we're going to get our bright green lake. What I love about this color, this is a Michael Harding color. It's kind of like neon green. I think you can get a similar effect with maybe a cobalt teal and a yellow. But any green will do. But I really this is one thing that I really love about this particular green. I'm also going to put a little sap green in here. Now, I'm using convenience colors tonight. All you have to do if you want to mix these colors yourself are use a yellow, whether it's Hansa, so it's a little more lemony yellow, or a warmer yellow, plus a blue. Ultramarine blue is usually my go-to color for that sort of thing. But that's all you need. You don't actually have to buy convenience colors. But I am a proponent for using what you have, you know, to get going with painting. We don't need one more thing that keeps us from getting into the habit of painting. It's hard enough. Okay, so this is my quinacridone magenta color. This is a core color in my list of colors. I kind of have a smattering of colors anymore from different brands. I really love core colors because they're super vibrant and they move really nicely on the page. Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit of this yellow. This is Yellow Lake. I just use a little bit of it in the background. Looks like I got a nice mixture of it there though, so that's good. And again, for the background, which we will start first, you can use a little bit of this Opera Pink that's by Daniel Smith. It doesn't have to be by Daniel Smith, but if you have Opera Pink, you can use your quinacridone quinacridone magenta if you want to, or you can use something like Shell Pink. These are all just because this is what I was doing creatively, and I liked that effect because I wanted this magenta color to really stand out in this little piece. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of this shell in here. Half the battle with painting is planning, and usually whether I'm oil painting or I'm watercolor painting, I start first with my palette and mixing up my colors, and then I get going. Okay. So what we're going to need to do, I think we have all of our color. We don't have all of our colors. So you need a purple as well. And you can mix this by using an ultramarine blue and a quinacridone magenta. Or you can use a convenience purple color. I am such a fan of this mineral violet that I like to use it a lot, but you don't have to have a convenience color for this as well. You can mix one with ultramarine blue and your quin magenta or an alizarin crimson, just a blue and a red of some sort, mix them together, and you'll have a really nice purple. And depending on how much blue you have or how much red you have determines whether it's a warm tone. Okay, so I think this is good. Now you may want to have a hairdryer handy so you can dry this in between layers. You might also want to have some paper towels ready because things get messy in the watercolor world. Also, you might want to have an extra brush handy with just water on it because like this is a smaller brush. I can fit into some of these smaller areas and add a little bit of water into these areas. Now, I will have to say, for my folks who are in my class, I had to do a little extra sketching in here from our image. So you might just double check your example, our picture, and you may need to just add a few things in there. So if you feel like mine looks a little bit different, I just realized today I needed to add a few things. All right, that's a mouthful. All right, it looks like Jean's joining us tonight. Thanks for tuning in tonight, Jean. I hope you're excited about this. I bet you have hollyhocks maybe in your yard. It's awesome that you're here. Okay, So first and foremost, we're going to work wet and wet in the background. So I'm going to wet this down with water, and then I'm going to put color into it. Now I don't want to have it to be overpowering to the image here. Like you can see here, this is a pretty vibrant background, but this still stands out in front of these things. So even if you do a really light background, that's going to be just fine too. Okay, so, and you may find, because in Idaho it's dry, I have to re-wet this. I have filled up my water spritzer in case I need to spritz stuff while I'm working. But this nice little brush here, this moppy brush, is really good at holding water. Of course, I got some on my drawing here, and we are just doing the outside of this drawing and where there would be a background showing through. So we're not painting water on the flower itself, just around it. This creates a really nice soft focus technique. And again, you might have to use another brush to get some of that water in between those little spaces. But you can see as I'm tilting this, what that looks like. So we're just going around the flower. And in some weird, these tight places. So and for those of you who are in my private class that's happening next week, I will tell you we are doing fur, but we are really doing little bears in that class, using some different pigments and some different techniques and a little bit of salt water. So I hope that you're excited about it too. It's kind of a fun little class. We get to use some unconventional colors a little bit together, which is always kind of fun. Okay, so I'm just going around here. Now I can see some areas may kind of dry a little bit, so I just kind of tap in here. The thing is, paint goes where water flows, essentially. And so wherever it's wet and has a continuous stream, essentially here on your paper, it will flow into that area, which allows us to do some really fun kind of techniques with watercolor. This can be a little time consuming, especially as you're watching and you can't really see anything yet, but it's worth it, I promise. Okay, let's see. And really, thanks to that brush, it really does make a big difference as to how fast this dries. You can also kind of tilt your paper if you need to move water a little bit. Sometimes it'll move, but you can kind of see what this is looking like here. I see a spot that I missed with a little bit of water. But this is kind of what your paper should be looking like. So I'm going to dip in here. Just double check for any dry areas. I might hit these inner bits a little bit and just drop in a little color. Now, I hope that you can see this. But you can just tap in color. Now, it doesn't always have to be the same color. You can drop in different colors if you want to. But now we can take one of our brushes here. I'm going to take my flat brush. Oh, I see some area that's drying, so I need to address that really quick. You could also spray this. And you can start dropping a little bit of your color in different places. You don't have to fill in space. You can just tap it in. To create the soft, diffused background. Now my core colors always move a lot. You can kind of see them skittering across the page here. Let's see. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow. Maybe a little pink in different places. And I do want to get it up next to this drawing, just so we really do create a background. They may find certain areas might be drying a little bit. You could even put in a little magenta if you were so brave. But it's just going to be really soft. It's just kind of fun to see how these mixtures mix together. You can see here. Now, what will happen, because this isn't stretched paper and because it's on a block and it's sort of loose, is I'm going to have some dipping. So I'm going to have some pooling here in places. Which always is, I'm not a fan of that. You can always also move your page around to make that water move to different parts on your page. And you can just kind of keep adding to this if you want to. There goes that core color just moving along. Okay, so I might leave this. I expect that I will hit this with the hairdryer, which means it's time for me to mute myself. And you keep painting, and I will be right back. Okay, so we have a little bit of backwash here. I had a little too much water there. And you can see how it kind of migrates to the corners because this is not stretched or because it's not flat, but we can make this work. Now we're going to move into this flower. So hopefully you're able to continue on with me here. So let's see, I'm going to throw this image up on the screen. I'm going to try here. We will see if we can get an even picture for both of these. Okay, so you can kind of see what we're going to be doing here. Let me bring up this image here. You can see my pointer here. So we're going to lay down what I call local color, which is that very basic color first. So we're going to lay down our vibrant, bright green lake and our magenta first too. We're going to do this in a process here. So just follow along with me, and then we're going to add our shadows and things later. So I'm going to stop. Oh, get my computer to work here. Come on, computer. Okay. So you may have to re-wet your green here. But I'm going to lay this down in each of these little blooms or about to blooms here. Because what's nice about this is this keeps this bright green color, and then we can build on it. So we're just moving the bead. Yeah, there we go. Just moving this bead of pigment in water. And I'm just grabbing more mixed pigment. Oops. Coloring outside the lines a little bit. Is this focusing here? We're having some issues focusing, so we're going to back this out a little bit. Okay. Just filling in each of these. This also kind of helps us find where we are within this painting. And this bright green lake is a Michael Harding paint. So I tested some of these colors, and this is one that I really enjoy from his line. Of course, I love his oil paints, and whenever I can find them, I'll buy a few tubes because they are some of the best paint, I feel like, as far as oil paints go, and these watercolors are really nice as well. So this does a nice job of filling this in and making it this nice solid green color. Of course, we'll do a little bit of layering. Now, if you only had this bright green lake, If you wanted to make it a darker green, all you'd have to do is add a little bit of ultramarine blue to it and use it that way, which we may do even still this evening. But for now, I really like this continuous color that we have here. It's nice and even. And so I am going to let it dry. I'm just kind of filling any area that was white paper there. But I'm really digging this for now. While I wait for that to dry, I can dip into my magenta, clean my brush, and some of these outer petals that aren't touching our green color here, I can kind of fill in too. So again, just moving the bead. This is just a really pretty pink color. I don't use it as much as I should because it really is a very nice color. And when I say moving the bead, I'm just moving this little bead of pigment. And why do we do this? It's so we have a nice, even application of color. We don't have a bunch of brush marks in it. It's just really nice and clean. And we may wind up with a bunch of brush marks here, but this is one way that you can get a nice smooth application of that. And it looks like our green is dry, so I'm going to just continue this and wrap it around this here. So that should dry pretty quickly. There is a little bit of this green color in the center of this flower. I almost forgot about that. So we may want to go in and add that green before I forget. Kind of like these little V shapes in the center of our hollyhock. Could even dip a little bit into our yellow here. Just paint on the outside here. Watercolor, I always work lighter to darker. That's the difference between maybe oil or acrylic versus watercolor, because we're using the light of the paper. Okay, so I have a good beginning. Hopefully you're still hanging in there with me. I'm going to let this dry here before I move into my magenta for the center flower. So what I can do while I'm waiting for this to dry is go in with a darker green, and you can always add ultramarine blue to your light green here. But I'm going to move into my sap green here and paint in the shadows, essentially, or the darker parts of these little green shoots that are going to bloom. And if you want to soften any edge, you can just dip into your water, into your clean water, take your brush, tap it on your paper towel, and just soften edges. See if we can zoom in here a little bit. I don't know why we can't get a clear image here, but we'll try here. And so I'm just going to work my way down. And anything that we want to remain light, we can not paint and just paint over the areas that we want to add shadow to. Just work our way down here. Our light source is coming from this direction. I think the best thing about art, and I think as we grow as artists and get better, one of the big tools that helps make us better and that makes, you know, it easier to do art is observation. Because as we are artists, you know, we're always observing things and paying attention to value and shape. Color. Just kind of moving down. What's great about these brushes, this is a Utrecht brush, but these pointed brushes is they give you a lot of value. You can get a really nice point, or you can use the side of it to paint. I did a whole class on different kinds of brushes and the marks that you can make with them. That is in my watercolor class online. So if you have bought the Watercolor Rockstar class, you have those classes in there. Check it out. It's kind of really fun to take an afternoon and just play with the brushes and the marks that you can make. I'm going to bring this up here a little bit. This doesn't have to be perfect, especially for those of you who might have a hard time seeing our worksheet at all. I'm just painting in shadows here. So if we zoom out a little bit, you know, our painting starts to take shape here. Typically, watercolor dries lighter than it appears in your first application. I always say with the caveat that core watercolors are really great for retaining their vibrancy and color. Okay. But if you wanted to, if you wanted a little bit more, to highlight some of these darker areas, all you'd have to do is just go back over. You could do one of two things. You could just go back over an area that you think needs to be a little bit darker and define it, or you can add a little bit more ultramarine blue or a dark color to your green mixture and make that a little bit darker. I think for now, I am going to hit this with a hairdryer because I have some wet spots that could mix in with my magenta. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer, which means I'm going to mute myself time, and you can continue painting and shaping your flower here. Okay. All right. So now we're doing pretty good here. Minus our backwash that's happening up here. I think this is turning out really nice. I think what we can see with this background is that it's going to make this flower stand out really nicely. Okay. Now let's see. I'm going to use this flat brush. We're going to try this for my petals here. You can approach this one of two ways. I like to glaze or layer, which means I'm going to lay down a color and let it dry and lay down another color. But you don't actually have to do that. You can lay down a color and mix in a secondary color in this. First, I'm just going to lay down my magenta and get it everywhere I want it. I could actually add more pigment to this. I feel like it needs a little more here. I'm just gonna paint this and move that bead along these petals. Sometimes I can't color in the lines, but I'm gonna try here. Now this is kind of drying pretty quickly, so I just want to get it rolling so these two beads meet up here. And because it dries so quickly, I may have to do this glazing wise. I may have to glaze it is what I mean. So that's a really nice deep magenta. We do have a shadow in here, but I have some portions of this that are already drying. We could try it. You could always dip in a little bit of your purple here. But I won't be able to go all the way around because it's drying. So I'm just going to tap it in here just so you can see what it looks like if you do tap it in while it's wet. Could be wetter where you are. And while that takes a minute, it's going to separate and it's going to be really pretty, I think. Here, you can kind of get a closer look of some of this granulation there. What I can do while that's drying is there is another area in our image that overlap, where petals overlap. That's a dark area. Now for me, I have to mix up my mineral violet a little bit because it separates, because it's two pigments in this particular mixture. So I can just paint in this area where they would overlap. We also have one of these areas where a petal folds over here, so I can tap in a little bit of this purple. Maybe glaze out there a little bit. So I'm not loving the splotch here, but I think I am going to hit it with a hair dryer so we can move on, because we'll have a few layers here. But we can see how our painting is coming together. So excuse me while I mute myself. Oh, you know what? I didn't even mute myself. I'm so sorry, guys. I tell you, it's a lot some days, just a live stream. So sorry about that. It does look like we had it's backwashed a little bit, but that's okay because we can continue to layer this, which we will do. So one of the things, I'm going to throw up our image here. If I don't still have it. Bear with me here. I'm going to throw up our hollyhock image again. Okay. So one thing I just want you to know as you're moving forward in your painting is we have this area that shows light reflection here. And then we have this area that has shadow. And so we can lift the light area if we need to, or we can use what we have. And sometimes it's a combination of both to get them working together. And so we're going to try to do that here. I'm going to remove this image. But when you're looking at your images and you're trying to paint something, just note where you have light and where you have shadow. This will help you a lot as you're painting or drawing and working towards a likeness. Okay. So even if you added another layer of this magenta, you could add it along the edges. This actually, it kind of comes down into this a little bit more. But you can add that shadow around the edges in the inside. This kind of helps create form for us. And you can also use your purple to do this, because this purple is on the inside. In some instances, it kind of goes out with this petal. It also kind of comes in here. If you're having trouble, don't worry about it. Just keep trying to shape it. What's nice about these little flat brushes is you can create nice lines with them. So I've taken this purple, I've run it on the inside. Of course, watercolor is doing what watercolor does, and it's kind of moving. That's okay. You can also run this along the edge. Now, it can be a little bit difficult to use a flat brush for something like this. Use what works for you. And I'm just kind of tapping in. I feel like I'm not getting pigment here, but we've got some shadow here. We have some dark shadow here too. Okay. So we may have to kind of go in and finesse this a little. Just adding a little bit more magenta into this. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit more magenta to this back flower. Try not to touch those edges so much, but okay. I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer, and I'm going to show you how we can lift pigment as well, especially if you've gotten pigment in areas that you don't want. So this time I will really try to mute myself first, and then I'll be right back. Okay. So then what we can do, you know, if you're not loving it, you can continue to finesse this. Sometimes it takes a little while, and they have some subtle lines in the center of these that you may want to render. But if you want to lighten an area or pull light out of something, maybe you're not happy with your edges, all you have to do is take a clean brush and gently scrub an area and take your paper towel and lift. And then you can see, well, there you've got a nice bit of light. You might try that over here a little. Some colors scrub a little bit better than others. And that kind of gives you your light. Now you can continue to paint into this. One thing I would recommend is you add a little bit of color in the center there, so it's not white, because it's kind of this orange peachy color. So all we have to do is take our yellow. Of course, this should be dry, but we can take our yellow and mix it with a little bit of magenta, and you can create a kind of orange peachy color. You could actually mix your pink too. And just fill in this little center area. Of course, we have a little bit of shading to do here in the center too. And you can continue to work on this. I'm going to continue to work on this a little bit. We are getting close to the hour mark, or we are at the hour mark. So if you need to go, you're welcome to do that. If you have questions, please throw them down in chat. Now you can see here, I'm just using a round brush to start adding a few little details in here, such as where the petal edges are. And you can always go in and add a little bit more shading if you want to. Again, feel free to pop any questions in chat. How did it go for you? Did you enjoy this class? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. And if you did and you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. That way you can know when we are having classes. Free classes on YouTube. Now, if you wanted to, what's great is you can carry some of these lines. That's a little bit dark there. But you can carry some of the texture of these petals. It doesn't look like we have any questions tonight. So I'm just going to keep painting. All right. I am just going to hit the base of these, some of these down here with another round of sap green. It's just kind of that added layer of value. That kind of makes things have a little bit more shape. You can define some edges. Just adding a little bit of this bright green color. To help tone things down and set things back a little. So I figure while y'all are still here, I'll just pull the tape because sometimes that also helps make a painting look a little bit better. It's always kind of fun to pull the tape too. But it helps, you know, the color of the tape impacts our painting a little bit. So yeah, okay. So you have the colors in case you want to do this on your own and you didn't paint along tonight. Feel free to take a screenshot. You have a couple seconds to do that before I switch cameras up. If you need to refer back to this. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked this class, let me know. If you had questions about it, please leave a comment and I'm happy to answer those questions. If you are part of the Watercolor Rockstar Paint Club, I will see you next week. I have our lessons. I just need to put our workbook together and should have that out by the end of this week. And what else can I tell you? If you want to learn more about me, visit pageweber.net and come paint with me. Thank you guys for being here. Jean and Jan, I appreciate you being here, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's class. And I will see you next. I'll see you guys next week, and I'll see my friends at YouTube here next month. Take care.